Sometimes the most brilliant and intelligent minds do not shine in standardized tests because they do not have standardized minds. Diane Ravitch. Hello, my name is Daniel Emerson, and today I'm presenting you with the effects of standardized testing. The question that's being presented today is one of great importance. It will affect future generations and whether or not their education will be similar to ours. When discussing education, all facets must be addressed, as it is a broad and controversial topic. So when discussing all angles of education, looking at every issue within the subject, the idea that is being proposed is that standardized testing needs to change for the betterment of future education. Let me be clear. Standardized testing needs to change for the betterment of future education. 6 arguments support this statement. Number 1, standardized tests only measure a small portion of what makes education meaningful. Number 2, standardized testing causes severe stress in most students. Number 3, standardized tests only consider a single test performance upon evaluation. Number 4, standardized tests evaluate a student's performance without considering external factors. Number 5, standardized tests provide a pressure to teach the test. Number 6, scores on standardized tests do not provide an accurate picture of a student's ability. Now, with the foundation of this argument laid out, I'll move on. The first argument being that standardized tests only measure a small portion of what makes education meaningful. There are many important things that people learn throughout their education, and the subjects that are on standardized tests are in this group. However, many subjects are never going to be covered on standardized tests, such as home economics, woodshop, art, music, physical education, and many more. Are schools saying that these subjects have less value than those that are taught on a standardized test? Now, I have to be clear, this thesis does support the teaching of mathematics and reading and writing and English. All of these are important subjects that need to be covered. However, many subjects will never get that chance to be covered because they do not fit to a standardized system. Education researcher Gerald W. Bracey. Qualities that standardized tests cannot measure include, quote, creativity, critical thinking, resilience, motivation, persistence, curiosity, endurance, reliability, enthusiasm, empathy, self-awareness, self-discipline, leadership, civic-mindedness, courage, compassion, resourcefulness, sense of beauty, sense of wonder, honesty, and integrity. Did you catch all of that? I believe that is 21 different things, different principles that cannot be taught on standardized tests. 21. Those are just the principles. Those aren't the actual subjects. As you can see, standardized tests only benefit those who are going into said fields of mathematics, writing, English, reading, and science. Number 2. The second supporting argument is that standardized testing causes severe stress in most students. 70% of all students above 50 million are affected by severe stress at some level due to standardized testing. Almost all students are affected at some level, albeit not a severe one. As students get older, they become more aware of how to take a standardized test, but that does not get rid of the fact that they get stressed out by them. According to education researcher Gregory J. Sizek, illustrating how testing produces gripping anxiety in even the brightest students and makes young children vomit or cry or even both. This ultimately leads to many students developing a negative attitude towards schoolwork and their abilities. The stress that standardized tests provide is a very unhealthy lifestyle for any student. Number 3, Standardized tests only consider a single test performance upon evaluation. Imagine a hardworking student who is a straight A student, but their entire grade depends on one final test. If they do poorly on this test, they will get a C in that class. The student knows that they are smarter than that, but is not what their score reflects. This will affect their mind into thinking that they are not as smart as they are, and now this sometimes may be true, but the majority of time, around 80%, the student underperforms due to the standardized test being difficult for them to understand, not because of a straight A student doing poorly. It's because of how this test is constructed. And that is what this point brings up, is that if a standardized test only considers one test, then what's the point of the previous schoolwork if almost 25% of your grade is done by one single test? That doesn't make any sense. It's an unbalanced system. The fourth supporting argument is that standardized tests only evaluate a student's performance without considering external factors. Now, some students are incredibly bright, but they just don't understand the test format. This can be with cultural factors, unfamiliarity with testing methods, test anxiety, illness, home life, or the fact that they just don't understand it. Around 80% of all students struggle with the taking of standardized tests. From MIT, quote, high standardized scores have little to do with memory, attention, and processing speed. This could mean that someone with a great educational background will struggle on a test, while someone with a great understanding of how to take a standardized test does better than them, which ultimately could be fair, but for the most part, it isn't. The fifth supporting argument is that standardized tests provide a pressure to teach the test. When standardized tests become an all-important part of school, it has a massive impact on teaching and learning. Some teachers will end up teaching, not with the actual intent to give knowledge, but to give students a lesson on how to take the test. One second. This creates a classroom atmosphere that lacks creativity and can limit a student's learning potential due to boredom. A 5-year University of Maryland study completed in 2007 found the pressure that teachers were feeling to teach to the test. And since No Child Left Behind was leading to, quote, declines in teaching higher order thinking and the amount of time spent on complex assignments and in the actual amount of time spent in high cognitive content in the curriculum. This all relates to that teachers teach to a standardized test because they are forced to, or they will lose their jobs. The sixth and final supporting argument is that scores on standardized tests do not provide an accurate picture of a student's ability. This goes back to every argument. This connects to everything. If a student is smarter than they believe they are, they will do great things in life. However, they could do poorly on a standardized test just because of how it's formatted. The amount of students that do poorly on these tests is insurmountable compared to the amount of students that do good on these tests. The reason being is that most students realize that these tests don't matter in the long run, but they actually just provide a gate or a boundary for them to work around. And all they have to do is understand the basic amounts and they pass, which isn't too bad, but it doesn't question or it doesn't challenge them to think outside the box or to have a better understanding of the teaching that they've received. While it seems as keeping the status quo would have nearly nothing going for it, there are at least 4 arguments that I've come up with that the other side has against us. The first counter is that standardized tests are objective measures of student achievement. The second, cheating done by teachers on standardized tests for their students is uncommon. The third, the multiple choice format used on standardized tests produces accurate information that is necessary to improve American schools. And fourth, standardized tests provide guidelines for the curriculum that students should learn. I'm going to go through these really quickly. The first counter is that standardized tests are objective measures of student achievement. While it may be true that if a student does poorly, it could be inferred that they did not try as hard as they could have. But there are other reasons why the student does poorly on a standardized test, such as how the test is formatted. So it's fundamentally wrong for someone to get a low score when they are a better student than most. This can be reflected in their grades. That is because of the format of a standardized test. The second counter is that cheating done by teachers on standardized tests is an uncommon practice. While it may be true that it's uncommon, the fact that it is a known fact that it happens means that education systems are okay with this happening. While that can't be true, so something must be wrong with standardized testing so that teachers are forced to cheat. Some teachers can't afford to have their jobs lost due to this. And it's because they have to teach the test, and if they don't, then they get fired. The third counter is that multiple choice format used on standardized tests produces accurate information that is necessary to improve American schools. While the accurate information part might be necessary, and it might be real, which it is, this thesis agrees with that, it doesn't matter because the test format used is invalid. So if you're getting invalid, accurate information, that information is invalid. It's as if they're making a bell curve, which is the bell curve that shows the average of students is at the top, then this is the above average, this is the below average, the bell curve. But if the bell curve is inaccurate, that means instead of being over here, it's over here, not even a part of reality. The fourth and final counter is that standardized tests provide guidelines for the curriculum that students should learn. While it is true that standardized tests gives teachers a structure to build upon, it narrows down what can be tested. Already explained before, woodshop, art, music, etc., are not able to be taught on a standardized test because of the format of a standardized test. That is why it is not good that it restricts this curriculum. It should be a testing format should be able to support every type of class. This leads me into my plan. And everyone is right to do so, to ask, what is the plan? If someone sees that there's a problem with something that they care about, they will also try to offer up a solution to fix this. With everything that has been discussed so far, a reasonable solution can be found by looking at the many supporting arguments for the change of standardized testing. First off, the plan should include a security measure for teachers. That way they are not punished for using this new form of testing students. This new form of testing students will be set by the Department of Education and will include a set of very relaxed guidelines of what to teach and a variety of unique techniques of unique type of tests for the teachers to build their tests upon. This would be funded by the current funding of standardized test market, as it is almost the same price within $20,000 of each other to produce the unique test when compared to the current standardized test. Essentially, the plan is to give teachers the freedom to make their tests that will be less harmful for the students taking them. To bring everything to a close and to give clarity to the topic, I'll repeat everything. First, the problem of standardized testing is presented. The thesis statement Standardized testing needs to change for the betterment of future education is given, and then the 6 supporting arguments. Then, after that, it was the 4 countering points. Then, all 4 countered points were then recountered or refuted by the supporting arguments, and then the plan was given on what to do after the current form of standardized testing is abolished and gone with. Many schools, colleges, and universities all agree that education needs to have improvements. And one of the simplest methods to do this is to change the standardized test. After all, it is for the betterment of future education. I'll leave you with a quote. All students can learn and succeed, but not on the same day in the same way. William G. Spady. Thank you.